Top 20 Release Manager Interview Questions and Answers. A release manager is charged with the responsibility of ensuring timely and smooth releases of software. In order to find the right person for this role, you need to know the areas to assess. These release manager interview questions and answers will give you great insights into this role and also help to quicken your interview preparation. 1. Tell us about yourself. The interviewer wants to know more about you. So share everything about yourself that is relevant to the job. Tip number 1. Talk about yourself including current employment, education, and achievements. Tip number 2. Make it prompt and include anything relevant to the position. Sample answer. I am a release manager at ABC Limited. I joined the company 7 years ago. Over these years, I have helped to streamline and significantly improve the company's software product release processes. I hold a bachelor's degree in computer science. I am hardworking, trustworthy, and dependable. Given a chance in this company, I will perform my roles and duties expertly and excellently. 2. Why do you want to leave your current job? Here, the interviewer wants to understand why you are leaving your current employer. Tip number 1. Give a convincing reason without talking negatively about your employer. Tip number 2. Be honest and clear. Sample answer. I am very passionate about what I do and would want to grow my career even further. However, my employer no longer offers opportunities for growth and development. Therefore, I am looking for an environment that promotes career growth. 3. Why do you want to work in this company? The employer seeks to hear what attracts you to the company or the reason why you want to work there. Tip number 1. Mention what draws you to the company. Tip number 2. Be brief and go direct to the point without mulling. Sample answer. I want to work for this firm because of its strong reputation in the software industry. It is well known for delivering innovative products. The company is also famous for supporting its workforce with the right resources to perform their work effectively. I am also aware that it is constantly evolving and developing its employees to perform even better. 4. What roles does a release manager perform? The interviewer seeks to know whether you are aware of your roles. Tip number 1. Mention several roles performed by release managers. Tip number 2. Give the impression that you understand your roles. Sample answer. A release manager is in charge of the release management lifecycle. He plans about the release lifecycle and manages associated risks. He or she coordinates different aspects of projects and production into one integrated solution. Moreover, release managers ensure that timelines, resources, and other process elements are considered as well as accounted for. Besides, they make sure that releases are delivered within requirements and budget. 5. What qualities should a release manager have to perform effectively? Tip number 1. State the qualities that a release manager should possess. Tip number 2. Provide your answer promptly without mulling. Sample answer. A competent release manager should have great negotiation, organization, and leadership skills. A good release manager should also have good relationship building, negotiation, and management skills. 6. How does a typical day of a release manager look like? Tip number 1. Mention some key duties performed by a release manager. Tip number 2. Provide your answer promptly to show you know your roles. Sample answer. A release manager performs various duties including planning the release windows, mitigating risks that affect release scope, and communicating major project requirements, plans, changes, and commitments. 7. Why do you want to be a release manager? Tip number 1. Mention the skills and qualities that relate to this position. Tip number 2. Give the impression that you are qualified for the job. Sample answer. I want to become a release manager because my skill set perfectly fits this role. I am also experienced in release management. Having worked for over 7 years as a release manager, I have extensive knowledge about the release management lifecycle. Over the years, I have gained understanding concerning what works and what doesn't. 8. How do your colleagues describe you? Tip number 1. State the qualities that your colleagues see in you. Tip number 2. Be honest and provide a convincing answer. Sample answer. My co-workers say that I am professional in all my dealings, I respect others, and that they can count on me whenever I am called upon to assist. Besides, they will tell you that I am a solution-oriented person. 9. What viewpoint do you hold regarding management? Tip number 1. State your viewpoint concerning management. Tip number 2. Be clear and go straight to the point. Sample answer. My opinion about management is that teams should have leaders who coordinate them and ensure all members are working towards the same goal. Besides, I believe that workload should be distributed equally among team members. 10. As a release manager, how do you measure your success? Tip number 1. Describe the way you measure your success. Tip number 2. Ensure to provide a relevant and correct answer. Sample answer. I ensure to set goals, communicate them to my team, and distribute related activities among team members. In the end, I measure how successful I am by checking whether the set goals have been met. When goals are met, I consider myself to be successful. 11. How do you deal with a subordinate who is performing inefficiently? Tip number 1. State the approach you take concerning underperforming employees. Tip number 2. Show that you can deal with issues of inefficiency. Sample answer. I consider all employees that work with me as extensions of my effectiveness. This will enable me to know the problem or challenge affecting the individual. Following that, I will develop a performance improvement plan and use it to improve performance. 12. In what ways do you keep your team inspired? Tip number 1. State 2 or 3 ways you use to inspire employees. Tip number 2. Give the impression that you can keep your team motivated. Sample answer. As a release manager, I always make effort to recognize individuals that meet goals. This helps employees to learn by working with each other. 13. Concerning duty delegation, how do you ensure to be confident that assigned work will be performed perfectly? Tip number 1. State how you delegate work. Tip number 2. Make the interviewer understand how your method gets the work done perfectly. Sample answer. Before delegating tasks to my team, I make sure to know the skills and abilities of every team member. I place everyone where they can perform best. In doing so, I get the work done perfectly. 14. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Tip number 1. Mention where you see yourself in 5 years. Tip number 2. Show that you plan and anticipate growth in your career. Sample answer. I expect to have acquired more skills in the industry and gain lots of experience. Moreover, I would want to be a reliable person who can be relied on by colleagues to get problems solved quickly. 15. Briefly tell us the most difficult situation you faced and how you handle it. Tip number 1. Describe the most difficult situation you have experienced. Tip number 2. State how you tackled it. Sample answer. Sometime during my last assignment, a member of the development team who was very instrumental in finalizing the product resigned. This turned out to be a huge challenge because no other team member had the necessary skills to get the product completed and released on time. 16. As a release manager, how do you respond to working under pressure? Tip number 1. Mention how you work under pressure. Tip number 2. Show that you can perform effectively under pressure. Sample answer. When I have too much work that needs to be completed within strict deadlines, I begin by prioritizing tasks. I also ensure to complete tasks faster and even extend beyond the normal working hours to get the work completed on time. 17. What have you done to improve your knowledge in the last 12 months? Tip number 1. Mention the career development activity undertaken. Tip number 2. Be honest and precise with your answer. Sample answer. The last 12 months, I have acquired a managerial certification. This relates to a 5-month course that I completed 2 months ago. Through it, I have enhanced my knowledge and skills, particularly concerning management. 18. How will you make sure there is continuous integration, support, deployment, and flow of development? Tip number 1. Mention how you will make sure there is continuous integration, support, and development. Tip number 2. Make sure to provide a relevant answer. Sample answer. I will seek to have everyone understand their role, including what they should respond to and the set delivery time. Moreover, I will be holding one-on-one meetings with concerned members to schedule work and resolve issues. 19. As a release manager, what motivates you? Tip number 1. Mention what keeps you going. Tip number 2. Do not provide a vague or generic answer. Sample answer. I am very passionate about what I do. When handling any project, I aim at attaining a 100% success rate. 20. How do you ensure products are released on time? Tip number 1. State how you ensure deadlines are met. Tip number 2. Demonstrate that you can deliver products on time. Sample answer. I begin by assessing all that is required to ensure a product is released on time. Moreover, I ensure that planned tasks are assigned based on the competence of every individual to guarantee effective work and timely delivery. Conclusion. Preparing for your hiring process doesn't have to be another hectic undertaking. Use these release manager interview questions and answers to get ready for your next release manager job interview. They cover the main areas you need to assess to know the competencies of your candidate. Hopefully these release manager interview questions will help you land your next dream job.